This is episode 15 of Triple Cross Cinema. I'm Whooper, and here's Mario.
Hi everyone, I'm Mario.
We're going to talk about Italian films this week. What have we done so far? We've done uh, Korean,
Japan.
Japanese, Chinese language films. We've done the
hmm
French New Wave.
Yep.
I feel like maybe there was another country in there that I'm missing. And now we're on to Italy, so maybe our fifth or sixth country. And when
Yep.
you think of Italy and Italian film, oftentimes your mind will jump to neorealism, but we're actually covering three films from the period that directly followed the
Yep.
neorealism period. And those are Voyage in Italy, directed by
hmm
Roberto Rossellini,
hmm
La Avventura, directed by Michelangelo Antonioni, and La Dolce
Like the
Vita
Chipita.
by Fellini.
Yeah, I think this is like the period where like more art house of the Italian movement. So yeah, I would say like they pretty long. They are really long, but
Well,
they had
two
some
of them
merits. Yep,
are
that's
long.
true.
I mean, La Dolce Vita was literally double the runtime of
Mm,
Voyage in Italy, also called
yep.
Journey to Italy on
hmm
on some sites and in some editions of the movie.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I have never watched any movie directed by Roberto Rossellini, so that's why I want to check it out. This one is especially this one have Ingrid Bergman, which was his wife. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah, they are they was a real couple in real life,
I assume that it
real
didn't
couple.
last too long because whenever you look at like whenever you look up an old actor or actress from, let's say, I don't know, 40s, 50s, 60s, on Wikipedia, and you look over to the right hand side and you see their family
Yep.
history, it's always like minimum of three different spouses.
All right.
So
You.
marriage, divorce, just
Yep.
let nonstop.
It followed that pattern. So they've been together for 7 years from 1950 to 1957.
That's not so bad.
Uh, all right.
7 years,
Uh,
yeah,
all right.
sure.
The reason I know is because I know of Isabella Rossellini, which is their daughter, and she also a prolific actress as well.
Hmm.
Not on the same level of Bergman, of course, but she actually I think you might watch her before. She played in Blue Velvet by David Lynch.
I haven't seen Blue Velvet,
Right.
but I know the
She's
name Isabella Rossellini.
yeah. I think she that's her most famous role.
Okay. Well, we're not going to be talking about her this week. We're going to be talking about her mom, at
Yep.
least for a little
Yep.
bit, because we're going to go through these films, and I'm not sure exactly which order. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's go with just the release order. So let's go with Journey to Italy first, or Voyage to Italy.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean,
I
this is the easy. I guess we're taking it easy on ourselves because this is the shortest one and probably I mean, definitely the easiest to
Yep.
discuss.
Yeah, that's true. And I in some way I feel it's great to see these two actors again. Uh, we saw them before in back from Casablanca and All About Eve. So it's
Right.
great to see them again. You know, like as a couple
Yeah.
for for the trip to Italy.
What's his face was in All About Eve. That's right. George Sanders.
Yep, yep, yep,
He was like the gossip
yep.
columnist, the journalist.
Journalists. Yep.
Yeah, the theater critic in
hmm
All About Eve. He was a real slime ball
Yeah.
in
Well,
that movie.
we're gonna
He's kind of a
talk.
slime ball in this movie.
Well, he the nicest guys out of the three film we watch.
Oh,
Let's
you think
remember
he's the
that.
nicest leading man?
Yep.
Um,
Don't you agree?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I guess I would say so, but that's also kind of a superficial like category
Right.
to compare these three characters in.
Yep. yeah,
because certainly he has like the least going on. You know what I mean? He has the fewest
mm,
opportunities to be like a life ruining
to be
jerk.
yeah to be unlikable like these other two.
Yeah, he's kind of hateable in like a garden variety.
Yep, yep,
He's he's just a regular old husband who has fallen out of love with his wife,
yeah,
um, and is looking for a little something on the side.
right, yeah.
You know, that probably
Um,
describes millions of men.
that is true, and I would just say that for the three films, I think the most naughty thing is that like all of them are in dub, and I think it's a regular practice in at the time where like they would dub later on, so they have like all the English version and Italian version of the films. I think this one is they was original dub in English because of the two main leads.
Right.
So
Yeah. Although the the original cut of the film, I'm
was in Italian, right?
I'm not sure. It was a little difficult for me to tell on Wikipedia. I think the original cut was in English, but the runtime may have been longer. The one that was in Italian theaters.
All right. From what I understand, the original cut was released in theaters in Italy, so that's why it had to be dubbed in Italian, and that's why it was longer.
Well,
And
why would it be 20 minutes longer just because it's
because
dubbed in Italian? I mean, I know that they use more syllables per sentence, but you also got 20 minutes of extra footage that would have to be in there.
yeah, I think they cut more scenes from to have like the current version of Voyage.
Yeah.
I don't know what was cut out.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know. I mean, the Criterion channel listed as 85 minutes, so I assume that this is the version that, cinephiles have seen and, care
Hmm.
about. So if that's you, don't worry. We watched the quote unquote real one.
Yep.
But even though it was the real one, and it is a film by Rossellini, who's a very important filmmaker, and even though this film was apparently, inspirational to a lot of French New Wave directors, and it
Yep.
stars a couple of really famous and talented actors and all of that, I just didn't really like. I This film bored me, and its
Right.
ending was particularly disappointing. I
Yep.
thought,
Yep. It's a bit too happy.
yeah, it's. I mean, honestly, it's kind of Hollywood. You got the
Yeah,
happy
yeah, yeah.
ending, staple it
I
on
feel
there.
yeah, I feel the same. I feel like this one is the most like quote unquote Hollywood films out of the three films. Not necessarily because of these actors, but the structure as well. And yeah, like we just said, we get like the very happy ending where they like kind of reconciles. But yeah, I think that the look at their marriage, like they're like they're on the brink of like divorce. I think they have some real look at that.
I guess. I mean, the film doesn't really examine much else.
Well,
It doesn't have.
that
It isn't looking all over the place and talking about a dozen different topics like La
yeah,
Dolce Vita, and it's not super slow paced and introspective like La
yeah,
Ventura. It's
yeah,
kind of just like a character drama, or not. I mean, I would. I don't know. I would call it just like a marriage drama almost,
yeah.
rather than
That's
a
true.
character drama.
I do think that they did spend a good amount of time just to explore the series. So we have one of the character go to museum and we see like the guy talking about like the phenomenal or uh the
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 sculptures,
statues, the
yeah,
sculptures, yeah. Just
yeah. It is kind of
like
like a tourism ad.
yeah, that's true. And it just yeah, it just I just recently watched a film that's set in Naples as well, back in Cannes, and yeah, it kind of interesting for me to see like the Naples, like in the current time, and through cinemas, and the Naples that we see here, like back in 1954. So like before even my father was born.
Oh, is that right?
And yeah, yeah. And like see the same, like the catacombs and some of these famous places in Naples. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, actually the catacombs, the part where she goes with
Yeah,
the woman, like there's a couple who live at this villa and take care of
yep,
it, like they mind the house.
yep,
I
yep,
I
yep,
wrote
yep.
her name down someplace.
Mary?
Is it?
Not sure. Actually, let me check.
I
Natalie,
mean,
sorry. The
it wouldn't be Mary.
the
If it's in Italy, it would probably be Maria, but I'm not
yeah,
sure that
yeah.
was her name.
Natalie
Oh,
is
Natalia.
the the Burton's family
Right.
couples. Yep,
Natalia. So the scene where she goes with Natalia, where Catherine, Ingrid Bergman's character, um,
yep.
goes with Natalia to the catacombs, that's my favorite scene.
All
Be-
right.
because it, first of all, it's an important scene because it kind of establishes a sense of unease in Catherine's mind, which is necessary for the film to progress. Because when she goes
Mhm.
to the volcanic, what do you call it? The unearthing
Yeah, all
project,
right.
or
Oh yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah,
there's
yeah.
a word that I'm looking for, but I can't find it in my head. But when she sees the dead couple, the plaster models of the dead couple,
Yep, yep, yep,
who were buried underneath like the ash of Mount
yep,
Vesuvius. And
yep.
then later on, when she's swept away by the crowd during that religious procession, all that like all that stuff, you need a scene that plants a seed of kind of unease and and doubt and fear in her mind before all that. And the catacomb
Mm.
scene really does that successfully. Just because of the imagery and like all the skulls, stacked on top of each other in rows and rows and columns, and also the just the layout of the catacombs, like the way that the walls of rock are kind of sloped inwards,
Yep,
like they're
yep,
kind of
yep.
diagonal. Even though the place is huge and the ceiling is really high, it still feels like the walls are kind of closing in on anyone
Hmm.
who walks through them. And we do get a couple like long shots where
Yeah,
Bergman walks away from the camera through like between the walls of the catacombs, and the light is coming in at a slanted angle as well,
yep,
just naturally because of the layout of the place. So, I mean, it's the best looking part of the film, I think, and it also
yep,
does an important, it does something important for her character.
yep. I can't imagine how we would feel ourselves if we like go there directly. I think we would feel overwhelmed by the like the massive amount of skulls and you know
Yeah, probably. Although it's interesting, like Italian people don't have the same. They don't look at it that
thought.
way, because
Yeah,
they
that's right.
apparently, according to Natalia, they will go to the
And
catacombs and
pray.
yeah, well, they not only do they pray, they also adopt skeletons because nobody is caring for those bones, like they're unidentified
Oh,
remains, and people will care for them and I don't know, leave flowers and make sure that the bones are being like cared for, and
uh,
it's a whole thing, like like a spiritual thing.
yeah. It's interesting that yeah, you use adobe. Well, right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, they take turn take care of the of the remains, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, when she's initially telling Catherine about it, Catherine doesn't seem to be very interested, but she kind of sells it as being like an important part of um, what do you say, Napoleon? What people who live in Naples? What do you Neo
The police,
Neapolitan? Oh, Nepalese,
the
Neapolise.
police.
Yeah, that sounds right, at least to
Yeah,
me,
I
who knows nothing. It's an
well,
important part of
I
their culture, and the way she describes it is very, yeah, it's interesting to think about because just watching the film and seeing all the bones and the skulls and everything, you get a
yeah,
certain sense of how you might feel visiting it, but apparently that's not really
right.
the case for the locals.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about the Catherine characters. How would you take about Alex?
I mostly think that Alex just doesn't really love his wife anymore and is looking for something on the
Yep.
side.
Yep.
He wants to go to bed with
Yep.
somebody different. That's that seems to
Yep.
be what he wants out of this trip.
Uh, Thankfully, that like his first attempt at Mary was not successful because Mary mentioned about the husband.
Right. Yeah. Of course,
Uh,
she doesn't mention it early on.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I guess that's just because you don't have scenes between those characters if she says something right away.
And then she tried to pick up a hooker,
Yeah.
and turned out that the hooker was feeling very emotional because of her friend died. Just imagine, like I would say that that really killed mood.
Yeah.
So
Most
yeah,
likely. Yeah. I
well,
mean, if it had been one of the other two characters from La Ventura or La Dolce Vita, it
yep.
wouldn't have necessarily been a deal breaker. They might have been like, "Oh, you were feeling suicidal because of the death of your friend who left behind a baby who was like 7 months old. Who cares?
That's
All right, get
fine.
undressed."
Yeah, that's fine. I would say he not intentionally like looking for fun, but it just like it it a combination of the frustration, like the tension that he got with Catherine right now. They feel stuck. They don't feel like sharing anything, and more like like it just like a impulse, like he just like do it unconsciously.
You're giving him way too
Sorry,
much credit.
consciously. Well, I think he had charisma, and like part of him does love his wife.
I
Just
mean,
that.
it seems to me the only charisma he really has is like snobby British, pretentious charisma,
All right.
like having a very posh accent
Uh-huh.
and kind of having an eyebrow arched at all times. Like, "Hmm, what are these commoners doing over here? Hmm. My name is
uh,
whatever. My name Alex."
I it interesting because on these three films, like taking place, like have different plot, and like feature different characters. I think they kind of are speaking to the same class of people. So like high class, we will see a lot of like these characters go into party, and like they they kind of enjoy the party as well. I think like one of the character here in this film, or in like La Ventura, I don't remember, just mentioned that like uh I get used to the party, you know.
Um,
I think it's
yeah,
in La Ventura.
I know what you mean. Yeah, one of
Yeah,
the characters, I can't remember which film it is, but one of them says that they feel kind of trapped.
yep, yep,
Um,
yep. But
and
the
actually,
next,
that may have been La Dolce Vita,
yeah.
one of
Well,
the
I
many parties that what's his face
yeah,
attends. They
yep,
say,
yep,
"I've."
yep.
Oh no, no! What man?
I think
Now all my mental energy is like dedicated to trying to figure out who said that. But
I
it's
remember.
somebody who says that they feel kind of like trapped in a society that is like designed to prop up um, the upper class, and like they can't escape from it because they're essentially guaranteed not to fail. Like they're
Right.
guaranteed to have continual access to this sort of wealth.
Yeah, I can't remember someone saying that as well. Maybe it's from the Dolce Vita. But the scene
Honestly,
I
it
re
could be a sentiment that was expressed in several of these films because, like you
that
said, they are
that's
all about a higher, like a quote unquote higher class of people.
yep.
Because the neorealist movement was more about the
The
working class,
That's
and
true.
now
Yep.
we're dealing with the bourgeoisie, who
Yep.
are like upper middle class.
That's right. I think I the scene I remember is from La Aventura, when one of the friends, she was in the yacht as well, and she mentioned how like she doesn't really like to meet new people, and then later on like the girl see her hosting the party, and she said like, "Oh, you shouldn't take my words so seriously. Like I'm used to the party because my mom, like because of my mom and my husband was very outgoing persons. Remember that?
I lost track of what you were saying halfway through because of the background noise.
Uh,
But if you're talking
yeah,
about a character who was accustomed to a life of luxury and wealth, um,
yeah.
then
The
yes,
the
I
three films, the whole have these characters. And one more thing that really interesting about the Italian film is that they all they all have scenes that deal with the churches.
what was the church scene in Voyage in Italy?
The last one where they perform, I think, like some kind of
Oh, you mean church
ritual
as
something.
in the organization, not necessarily a physical structure.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The festival they dealing with the religions. That's what I mean.
Yeah, on Wikipedia it said something about there was all that whole procession in the streets. Their car kind of gets shunted off to one side because there are so many people walking
Yep, yep,
in the
yep, yep.
road. It's the festival is to like celebrate a particular saint who a couple times a year has some of their blood like liquefied. Like it's a particular saint of the Catholic Church, like the patron saint of Naples.
All right.
Yeah, and it that's true. Yeah, religion at least like these aren't religious films, but the concept of the Catholic Church and its traditions, are important at least as background elements in all these movies.
That's true
I mean,
because
La
I
Dolce
just
Vita even opens with a shot of a huge statue of Jesus being transported via helicopter.
that's true. Yeah. Because I just can't imagine these Hollywood the Hollywood films would have like like have that strong Catholic background like this.
Yeah, well, the U.S. is more of like a Protestant country,
Yep.
um, just by tradition. Although there are many, many, millions of Catholics who live here,
Mhm, mhm.
because
So
Catholics have a huge presence pretty much all over the world.
yep, yep, yep. But I think more strongly in the Europe and in the Italy itself. So they
Yeah,
have the Vatican.
right, because of Rome and all that.
Yep. So yeah, I would say like I kind of enjoy the uh how both Alex and Catherine, like is my their relationship. We could see that like they are on the brink, and we could see that they kind of trying to like navigate around that to see like if they truly like still love each other. um it like you said, it kind of simple because like it's the film show focus. But yeah, I thought that like it does very well until the ending where it get a bit too romantic.
Yeah, they've agreed like multiple times to get a divorce, and you can
Right.
you can tell from the performance. Well, specifically Ingrid Bergman's performance, that she still has some affection for her husband, and she doesn't really want to. She doesn't like earnestly want to get a divorce, but she's going along with it because she has so much anger towards Alex as well.
Yeah.
But he is like pretty blasé about it. If like between the two characters, there's one whose actions right at the very end I don't buy. It's his.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Well, if I tell you that I love you, would you
Do you
take
promise
advantage
not to
of
take
that?
advantage of me?
Yep.
What
Yeah.
kind of?
Well.
I mean, it really felt like they were just reaching for a kind of like a clever Hollywood quip to close out the film with
Yeah.
in that moment. Like, what do you, dude? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Who's being
Well.
taken advantage of here?
Well. Yeah. He known for his sarcasm. I still send his sense of sarcasm in there when he say that, you know.
Yeah, a little bit too sarcastic, I think. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that that line, if you're gonna just read it strictly in context and not criticize it on, you know, the from the perspective of like an audience member, if you're just gonna view it only contextually, the reason that he says that is because it's maybe an acknowledgement of the fact that he has been taking advantage of her. And so when he says that, it's almost like him asking, like, he's apologizing almost. He can't bring himself to do it, so instead he makes a sarcastic comment about, "Oh, now don't you take advantage of me?" Kind of
I
slyly being like, I know that I've been the one taking advantage of you."
well, yeah. My take was more of he, you know, like he willing to give his more vulnerable side to her.
But he expresses no vulnerability in that moment whatsoever. As you say, it's like he's completely sarcastic. Sarcasm
Yep,
is almost the opposite of vulnerability because you're being like
yep,
ironic and putting up a sort of defense
yep, yep,
via humor.
yep. That's true. Oh, one more thing is, you know, like between sorry, just the new Science Out 2022 just
Oh, are we
released.
gonna derail this whole episode to talk about the Sight and Sound poll?
No, no, no. Oh, you want to do that? No.
No, because I like the other two films more, and we're about to get to them.
Yeah, I just want to bring up the fact that actually the three film end up in the top 100. So I think this is a good pick for us. You know, like to you know like recently update to this and I see that these three film you know like in some way stand the test of time
I
to
guess,
some
yeah.
certain critics.
I mean, I would assume that these three films were on the list before. It's not as though
Yep,
films from the mid 20th century would be likely to enter the list. Most of the films that are entering the list for the first time are going to be 21st century movies.
that's true. That's true.
So these
Yep.
films just happen to be some of the ones that were not cut. But you have to figure, when the Sight and Sound list from the 24th century comes out, all three of these films may be absent.
Yeah, 24th century. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, time is going to march on. If you think about 100 years from now,
Yep.
so 21, 22, by that point, cinema will have been like a global tradition for 200 years,
Hmm.
as opposed to roughly 100 years like it is right now.
Yep.
So only half, let's say, of the films from the 20th century that are currently on the list are going to make it 100 years from now.
Yep. Yep.
And it
Yep.
could be it
That's
could be
true.
one of these films, two, or none
Hmm.
at all. I mean, I highly doubt that all three would still be around
Yep.
in the 22nd century.
Yeah. Well, if there's a chances that one of the three film gonna fall out of the top 100, I would say most likely this one because it's the most conventional.
It is the most conventional, but it's also the oldest. So it just depends on
That's true.
who
Yep.
they're
Yep.
who's doing the voting, like how much regard do they have for the fact that apparently this film was like an inspiration to Godard and
Mm-hmm.
other French filmmakers.
Yep. Alrighty. We can get to the next film if you like. It's up to you to pick the next one.
Okay, I mean, sure. Uh, I guess
All
La
right, let's go with
Aventura
that.
by Antonioni. Um, how'd you like this movie?
Boy, I I I I I was really into it. Like the first half of the movies, the first hours, I say, with you know, like they established the three main characters, and you know, like the most important one is missing. So like the whole church in the Iceland. I really like that, but somewhere along that line, it throw off that plot and focus more on you know like the ones that remain, and they become you know they have affair with each other. And towards the end of the movie, they completely forgot about you know the girl who is gone.
I had I mean, I would disagree with the very last statement that you made because one of Like when Claudia is searching for Sandro
Hmm.
in the hotel, she expresses, I think, to
Yeah,
Patrizia,
to
like
right.
one of her friends, one of the women who was on the boat when they went to the
Yep,
island.
yep, yep,
She says like,
yep,
I'm afraid that, Anna has come back and that Sandro has run off with her.
yep.
Obviously, like not really a rational fear, but it's not as though
Hmm.
she's forgotten about Anna. It's more like the film almost forgets about Anna.
Yep, yep,
But
yep.
apart from that, like disagreement, I guess I pretty much had the same reaction to the movie. I was really into it for perhaps the first half, but after the search for Anna kind of gave way to more of a character study about
Hmm.
Sandro and Claudia, like in isolation,
Yep.
I wasn't as into it.
I yeah, I didn't really buy the like the eventually fluctuation, flat the eventual
Infatuation.
yeah between Sandro and Claudia. Like I just couldn't buy it. It's just like in a matter of days, right? After her friend disappeared.
I mean, it's hard to say exactly how much time passed. Um, I would say it's more like weeks, probably, because there are periods of time where the two are apart from one another and do like
Hmm.
conducting their own searches for her. Like for example,
Hmm.
Claudia says to her friends that she visited each individual island, every single one.
Yep,
Not
yep,
only
yep,
did
yep.
she declare that she was gonna do that, and everyone else looked at her like she was crazy, but she actually did it. We
Hmm.
didn't see any of that. So it could be like, I would say the events of this movie probably happened over the course of several weeks, like 3 weeks, a month, something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's hard to say though, because the film is not. I mean, this is an art house movie. That's that's how I would label it anyway. And oftentimes those sorts of films are not particularly concerned with the passage of time.
Yep,
Um,
yep. It's
and
more like the mood.
yeah,
Yep,
Yeah, and
yep,
like
yep.
the
That's true.
interior lives of the characters, and that's
Hmm.
a place that this film eventually gets to. Even near the start, when something's obviously not quite right with Anna, um, the film takes its time in exploring that.
Yeah,
So
I really like the fact that that we start with Anna having a conversation with her father, and it's kind of exploratory, but it still explain like they didn't really get along, and he doesn't like the guy, and yeah, and throughout the first half, we can really see like the conflict. The Anna just want like central attention, and she been two-minded again, like really want to meet him, and like backing out. So like she's like in the middle of like she just does isn't sure herself as well. So like when she disappear, I think it makes sense that like either like because of the conflict of Sandro, or she just like trying to make a scene. So I think um uh, the film really make a good case of like making us intrigued of like the Anna disappearance.
yeah, it could be for any number of reasons, which
Yep.
that kind of compels you to keep watching, even though the search for her is very long. But the reasons that she might have disappeared and whether she's dead or not is totally open to interpretation because she's a pretty complicated
Mhm.
character, even though we only know her for like 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's true.
She says to Claudia is the one who gives her a ride to Sandro's apartment near the start of the film, and
Hmm.
she's
Hmm.
something she
Yep.
says to Claudia before she goes in and speaks to Sandro. She says that it's it's torture to be apart from somebody,
Hmm.
like in a long distance sort of relationship. But at the same time, when they're not there next to you, they can be whoever you want them to be. Like in your
Yep.
mind, they can be they can be
Yep.
anyone. They can do anything. Whereas when you're actually physically, in their presence, what you what you see is what you get. Like what they
Yep.
do is who they are,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep. Yep.
your imagination and your wishes and your desires for that person are kind of pushed to the side by the reality
Yep.
of the situation.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think
That's
that's
true.
probably Anna is concerned, like is torn between those two perspectives, not just where Sandro is concerned, but just in general. Because
Mhm.
the way that she acts, like the performance given by looking up the name, Leah Masari, Masari, I don't know how you would pronounce it.
Yep.
She you know, there's a bit of a dreamlike quality to her performance. For example, the scene on the boat after she lies about the shark, when she and
Yep.
Claudia are changing, and she asks Claudia to like try on one of her blouses.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
just seems to me like in that scene, there's kind of a moment where she wants to make Claudia into an image of herself. Like she wants to see herself reflected in somebody else because she's not totally sure who she is as an
Mhm.
individual. I just get that sense
I
from the performance.
well, I get more of like the queer sense between
Oh
them, between
yeah,
Claudia and
that's there as well, just for a short moment, and that's part of
yep.
why Claudia is hung up on Anna for a
Yep.
long
Yep.
time before she and Sandro eventually, you know,
Engage.
yeah, before we get the train scene, of course,
Yep.
extremely phallic.
I would say that the train scene is one of my least favorite scene out of the whole films.
You're talking about the like not just the scenes where they're on the train, but the train scene, right, where they cut away from the two of them kissing in the grass, and we get the shot of the train.
The one before that, the one where Sandro trying to get into the train.
Oh no, that to me that was just
Yep.
like an ordinary scene from an ordinary movie.
Yep.
I'm
Yep. Yep.
talking about the fact that they cut
Yep.
away from the characters having sex, and you'd see a literal train like representing a penis, basically.
Mm, wow.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that that was the point of that scene.
Yeah,
It's totally phallic.
we get that symbolism before in anime as well. The uh oh oh maiden in your service season, the
Oh,
train
really?
scene. Remember, like in
Oh, the
on the
porn that the main character or that the male lead is watching at the start, right?
yeah, well, at the very first episodes where like at the end where she freak out of like every single thing that she saw in real life would like lead to her images
Oh, yes.
of sex,
Right.
like the train entering
The
the
tunnel.
tunnel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yep. But
Anyway, we were talking
yeah,
about Anna's character, but
that's right.
eventually that the focus on her gives way to Claudia.
Yep. 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 And I would say that the whole film is like more or less about seduction, seduce, because I just see like there's a lot of scene in regard to like one person seduce the others. So we get like a scene, a totally like off scene where we have like a 17 years old kid. I he's the
He's a
poet.
prince or something, isn't he?
Yeah, he's kind of the prince, and he draws and he draw nude girls, and like he real one of Anna's friends. I don't remember her name. Really, Patricia. I'm not sure, but
Are you're
yeah,
talking about the woman who's seduced by the painter?
yep,
Her name
yeah,
is
yeah. That's right.
Julia.
Julia. All right.
Yeah, it was started spelled with a G, so it's like Giulia. Hey,
Yep.
Giulia. I had to do
Right.
an Italian accent at some point during this episode.
Yep. Julia. Yeah.
Apologies.
That's right. uh, it yeah, it totally off the field for me, but
You think
yeah, it
so?
I think
Out
so.
of left field, huh? I don't, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a weird scene,
Yep,
but
yep,
at the
yep,
same time, I think this whole movie is. I'm going to say it. You ready?
yep. All right,
You
I'm
ready?
ready.
This movie.
Listener, you ready?
This movie is about the male gaze.
Oh, right.
Bam! I said it. I said the words. Now I'm a film critic.
All right.
I actually
Can
do
you?
think that this movie is about the male gaze. I mean, how
Yeah.
else do
Can
you explain scenes like Julia being seduced by the guy who only paints nude women, or the chaos, like the hysteria that overtakes Naples when the American actress, who's actually a prostitute, visits the
mhm.
city, and like there are tons of people trying to catch a glimpse of her, and there's a bunch of people with cameras, like the media is, they're all trying to get a
Yep.
snapshot.
We yeah we
And
get the same.
there's also the scene where Claudia, she's like,
Yep.
Alex goes into some building, I can't remember the context
Hmm.
exactly, but he goes to talk with someone, and she's left out
Yep.
on the street. And
Yep.
then there's like one long take where the camera kind of revolves around her as men like approach her from every angle,
Yep. 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 Yep.
and
I
kind
know
of
the
like
scene.
crowd her in. All those sorts of scenes, like, to me, read completely as being about I don't know, men's obsession with women.
All right. Yeah. All right. If you say that this movie is about male gaze, so what it tried to accomplish then?
Like, what is it? What is its message? What is it saying?
Yeah, criticism, or just like just stating the fact that.
I don't really know. I mean, if you were to look at the ending of the film, maybe as an indication of what its ultimate message is, uh,
Yeah, I don't
then
get it.
it kind of has sympathy for Sandro, almost as though
Right,
he's like a victim of his wandering eyes, and
and Nick.
yeah, and Dick. Um,
Jeez, yep.
but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the film is like overtly critical of men's, like, you know,
Yep.
perversion
Because
or obsession or
yeah.
projection of sex onto women. But it certainly features it like constantly, and
Mm,
it basically, those some of those scenes that I was just describing are,
yep.
they almost break up the film in order
Yep.
to address that topic for
Yep.
like five
Yep.
minutes, and then they go back to the search for Anna, or the relationship between Claudia and Sandro.
Yep. Yep.
So it seems to me that that was like the fact that the film kind of that it's structured that way means that Antonioni really wanted to at least bring up that topic and explore it, if not
Mm,
condemn it or celebrate it or whatever.
yep. That interesting take. But I would say that you can say the same thing with the La Dolce Vita as well. We talk
La
about a
Dolce
little
Vita,
of it.
I feel, is more nuanced.
Hmm. Hmm.
La Aventura really just hits the pause button and is like, okay, we're going to be a different movie for just a scene now, if that's cool.
Yep.
And then we'll get back to the plot in a little bit. But first, we have to watch an entire like city block get like stampeded with people probably being crushed under
Yep.
the rush of horny dudes who want to see this American actress.
Yep. Yep. Well, uh, I would say out of the three films, I really enjoyed the cinematography of this one.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
What
Even more.
about it? Like particular scenes or shots or
I,
techniques or
I, I,
what?
I just feel like all the shot in regard to the islands. So we have like a really long trekking shot of we see like the characters, each character go in search for Anna. And later on, where the shot in the hotel rooms, where they kind of trace the characters to mirrors, and like it's like a long unbroken shot of just following them, or even like like just staying static. I I
What shot is
I
this? Like multiple characters in front of mirrors,
Yeah,
or just
no, 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 no,
Claudia?
no, just Claudia, but multiple characters, like in search for Anna in the Icelands.
Yeah. Oh, there were some shots on the island that I really did enjoy. Like the
Did
camera
you
would be
enjoy?
relatively fixed, maybe not totally
Right.
still, but like one character would be searching for her and they would pass in and out of frame, and then another character would enter the
Hmm.
frame from like the other, the opposite
Yep.
direction.
Yep. 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 Yep.
And
Yep.
it kind of, the fact that the characters were taking such different footpaths, um, if you were to think about it logically, actually, that kind of makes sense that they would be
Yep.
operating that way because they want to be covering as much ground as possible, not just retracing each other's footsteps. But if you think
Yep.
about it cinematographically, the fact that the characters are like at cross purposes almost, like they're not walking in the same direction, they're approaching or walking away from the camera, kind of in
Disoriented.
yeah, it gives off the feeling that the characters are not united in their search. Really,
Correct.
like they may be looking for her all for different reasons, or some of them may not be looking as earnestly as others.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it in purpose then,
yeah,
it.
certainly.
Mhm.
It
Yep.
just like if you're to think about it, if you're to take it out of the context of the movie and think about it rationally, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're all just trying to search for her by looking in different places.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But of course, this is not the sort of movie where you're supposed to analyze each scene based on,
Mhm.
I don't know, like the real
Oh,
world geography of it.
yeah. Oh, there is one more scene that like that support the idea of the male gaze.
What's that?
That's the scene where the two of them, Sandra and Claudia, tracking Anna disappearance by going to the pharmacy and talking to that pharmacist or doctor.
Right. And he's got
Um,
the wife who has been with him for 3 months and is already tired of his
yep,
shit.
yep, yep. And the scene later on when they get out of the pharmacy and he kind of like tries uh talk more to them, and the look of his eye to Claudia that he like just look from top to end, from outside to inside until the wife comes.
Yeah. Well, doesn't he
That's the
actually
main
make a
case.
pass at her? Doesn't he say like nice
He
legs
did
or
say
something
something.
like that?
Yeah, he did say something. Yeah, along that line. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's more like, I don't know, direct,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
obvious.
That's true.
That doesn't interrupt the film quite so much. But
That's
that,
right.
I mean, honestly, of all the scenes where the film is about the way that men look at and perceive and like fetishize femininity, I guess, or basically the way that they stare lustfully at women. That's the one that's probably the most critical.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
the one that fits best into the plot of the film and the text of the film.
Yep.
And the poor wife is just like, man, what am I going to do with this guy? I got married to him, just a few months ago, and I'm already sick of this. Get me out.
Yep. Jeez. Yeah, that's right. Huh. Um. So I still don't know what to take of the ending. Like it a scene it a scene where Claudia's like having kind of forgive Sandro because
I
of.
definitely don't think you can say anything that definitive about the ending. Like it doesn't. She
Mhm.
undoubtedly, the fact that she like runs her hand through his hair, she's like comforting him. But
Yep.
I don't think you can say anything about forgiveness
Hmm.
or anything like that.
Hmm.
I think she probably pities him. Actually, that would be my guess.
That's a good
She's like
take as
taking
well.
pity on him because he's like helpless.
Hmm.
It's like he can't
Well.
act against his desires. He
Yep.
doesn't have
Yep.
the mental tools in order to do that.
Hmm. Well. Yeah, I think the film is really good at like at showing one thing at first and up to be entirely different thing at the end. And I would say like it really pump ups like the viewer because of that, because like it have been no disregard for the disappearance of Anna, or like they having the film having no desire to like have any conclusive conclusion in like in all the characters.
Right.
uh
Yeah. In most films, you would learn what happened to Anna.
Yeah.
This one you
Yeah.
don't, because you know,
Maybe she's just a
ultimately
device.
she's another woman that Sandro, you know,
Yep.
used
Yep.
up, I guess.
And I think that scene where Sandro talked to Claudia said best. Claudia said that, I imagine that you said the same thing with Anna's, and it make me feel, like uneasy. And Sandro just tell her that, I was in love with Anna, just like I'm in love with you now.
Right.
And to the future when he tried to make love with the American actress. So it's just on impulse.
Right. He's well,
Impulse.
the way he describes it to Anna, at least, you know, in the because this film is the dialogue is Italian, so we're dealing with a translation, you know, subtitles.
Mm,
He says to Claudia, "I was like earnest with Anna, and now I'm the same way with you. Like I'm earnestly in love with you as well."
mhm,
So perhaps the point there is that his earnestness, you know, most people would say that being earnest in love with someone is a virtue, like a positive trait. You're not
mhm.
holding anything back. You're not like disguising any part of your intentions. But obviously, that's not always going to be a positive trait. That's not always going to be a virtue, because if you're the sort of person who falls in love with multiple women or pursues multiple women and you do it earnestly,
Mm.
you know, setting aside the whole issue of monogamy,
Mhm.
you know, there's a potential for people to get hurt.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
even if you don't think that it's the right, you don't even if you don't think that it's necessary or the right thing to do to restrict yourself to one woman or for women to restrict themselves to one man, if you're just being open and honest in your pursuit of multiple people, then somebody's gonna disappear on an island. Not everyone
Yep.
is going to be happy in that equation, you know.
Mhm. So yeah, are you feeling frustrated at the ending, or
I
having
yeah,
watched?
I was, but you know, it's not too difficult to. I wouldn't say that you can really
Decipher?
make sense of it necessarily, but you can at least
Mm,
interpret it. And I don't think it's that difficult to interpret that scene because the film starts to give Sandro a lot more play in terms of characterization towards the end. You know, you get
yep.
the scene where he's out at the town square and he knocks the ink bottle over and ruins the young man's picture of his drawing of
Mm,
one of the door frames, I guess, one of the doorways to a building in the town square there, and they,
yep.
you know, they get into an altercation, and Sandro, like the way that he postures, like, "Oh, you young man, you don't even know how many fights I've been in."
Yep. 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 Yep.
You know, it seems based on that interaction, and also the one that he has with one of the locals, where he's asking about why the church isn't open.
Mhm.
And the guy's like, "Oh, well, I mean, last year there were some French tourists, but they were more interested in, you know, going down to the beach in their strunk." Did it
Yeah.
say that in your subtitles, strunk?
That they didn't really say that, but I kind of recall. Yeah. That scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
They
he
say
means to say
something.
trunks, like swimming trunks, and instead it's
Yep.
he says strunk, or at least that's what the subtitles say.
Mm-hmm.
So there's him, you know, getting into a conflict with a younger man, because the younger man, I mean, I would assume that he's jealous because maybe the quality of the sketch indicates that he has some level of talent.
Yep.
And Sandro is bitter because, as he explains to Claudia when they're on the roof of one of the bell towers,
Yep.
he he had a certain like vision for what he was going to do as an architect, but instead he just provides like estimates. He's more of like a financial guy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and he's like he's disappointed by that. So his basically all of what I'm getting at here is that we start to learn more about the the hopes that Sandro had for his life and how they're going unfulfilled, and how he probably feels unfulfilled
Mm-hmm.
as a person, you know, as a working man, as a human being. And so he probably fills that up with women, with sex,
Huh.
that hole in his life. and I think the film
I
has pity on him in the end when Claudia
ro-
puts her runs her hand through his hair.
all right. Just a moment that there that I mean you could say the same thing to like to the other guy in La Dolce Vita because I think it make more sense. Uh,
Yeah, I would say the same
it
thing about
yeah.
what's his name?
I think it's the same of the actor name as
Marcello.
well. Yeah,
That's right.
Marcello. But it get kind of interesting because like the whole in this film I think the film follow Claudia point of view the most, but
Yeah.
what we get out of that is more of Sandro's
What do you mean what we get out
perspective.
of it?
Like what we like being dissect is more about like the frustration, uh the feeling of Sandro more than Claudia's.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think the film is when it goes into the conversation on the roof of the bell tower, and when we get the scene where he knocks over the ink bottle and all that. I
Yep.
think the
Yep.
film is like more it's more specific in
Mm.
depicting
Yep.
what might be bugging Sandro, what might be like what
Yep.
ails him
Hmm.
mentally, like the things in which he's disappointed. Claudia's, like the way that her emotions are depicted is a lot more murky, and
Hmm.
relies a lot more on, I don't know, just like bigger, broader emotions,
Hmm.
like love,
Hmm.
obsession with Sandro, because when you get, for example, the scene where they're in the hotel room together, and she puts on the radio and starts to dance to it, and she says to him like that she's totally in love with him. How could she have fallen in love with him so quickly? She's obsessed with him. Then there's everything, all of her, guilt at being with
Hmm.
Sandro. Her, her what she felt for Anna, friendship, perhaps love, romantic love as well.
Hmm.
Um, all of those are kind of bigger, and broader, and not as specific as the ink bottle scene, for example.
Yep. 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 Yep.
And I think that ultimately the film probably does have more. It probably has more pity for Sandro, even though Claudia is probably the main like point of view character.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think we just I don't know. I just feels to me like we just know a little bit less about her.
Yep. Just like with Anna as well. So woman is more mysterious and
Yeah,
uh
that's a common thread, I think, probably in a lot of I don't, especially films that originate from like romantic countries, like France,
mhm.
Italy.
Yep.
The idea of woman as like kind of a divine, like the fairer sex, kind of like they're divine beings. They're not really knowable. Of course, that idea has fallen out of favor in the 21st century, and I think that's
Hmm.
probably a good thing. I mean, maybe I'm overstepping my bounds by putting my own, personal beliefs out there on that topic when talking about this film, but it does kind of feel like Claudia gets shortchanged a little bit,
Yep. 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 I can see that. Yep.
and that doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really feel good to like in the course of discussing the film, be like, oh yeah, Sandro is struggling with X, Y, Z, and Claudia, well, she was really in love with Sandro and maybe with Anna as well, and that's hard.
Yep.
I mean, she is obsessed with them, and that kind of does take over most of the scenes that we get with her in, front and center. For example, the long take of her running down the hallway to go to Patrizia's room and ask about like where Sandro is.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
She's running, she's like jogging the whole way, and when she gets back to her room after Patrizia's like, man, I don't know where he is. What are you doing coming over
Yep.
here asking about that? She goes back to her room and she stares into the mirror and she makes faces at herself. Like she's kind of just some of her scenes make me feel as though she's totally lost.
Yep, yep. I think that intentional as well,
Yeah. But a
because
character who is totally lost is a little more difficult to pin down and is treated a little bit more mysteriously than a character
mm,
who does seem to like there does seem to be some sort of diagnosis, you know.
yep,
The
yep,
diagnosis is clearer with regard to the male character.
hmm hmm yep. I think this film is, like I don't hate the time, but I don't think it's slow. Like a lot of people criticize it for being like slow pace. It yeah, I pretty much say that I'm still good to like rewatching it, because it just looked gorgeous to me.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know as much about cinematography, you know. I can't really say that it looks great,
Right.
whether it looks great or not. I mean, it I think it probably does. I mean, it was never boring to me on a visual level. I liked the scenes on the island. Um, I liked that. I think the film was appropriate in its, you know, the placement of the camera with regards to the characters, like the blocking and how close they were to the lens. For example,
hmm
again, the changing scene with Anna and Claudia after the shark incident. The camera is very close to the two of them, makes the moment more intimate.
hmm
Then there's Claudia goes into the other room to put on Anna's blouse. So in that moment, there's like the characters are separated from one
hmm
another because I think Anna is looking to project a part of herself onto somebody else, and as a result, they're visually divorced. Um, there's also what did you think of the shot when they're like we were talking earlier about the train the train scene, not the train
Yep.
scene but the train scene.
Yep.
But before the film cuts away, there's you know the two of them are laying down in the grass and they're kissing.
hmm
And the camera is very close up on both of their faces. And it's
Yep.
Claudia's face that's visible, and Sandro's face is usually obscured, either because it's like buried in the crook of her neck, or
Yep.
we just don't see his eyes really. What did you make
Yep.
of like that scene and that choice?
Yeah. Well, I think they make a right choice of like making that a close up, so we can see like the intimate. So like they really like at that point of time just like belong to each other, just the two of them. And it say more, it also say more about like it really their desire at the moment to just make love. And yeah, I didn't notice, but now that you mentioned that, they do really just focus on her face instead of his face. And I think that speak to the effect as well, that it's more about, but yeah, maybe it's like you say, it's more about male gaze. So that's like
I
that.
I I think that definitely is a. I think that plays a role in how like male directors will shoot their female actresses just all the time.
Mhm,
Um, like I don't know. It's hotter, I guess, is the idea. You know, at work in the minds of the people who are directing the movie, shooting the movie. If you can see the woman's point of view, maybe.
mhm,
But I'm just wondering, like, I I guess the idea that we're supposed to take away is that we already know that Sandro is like pursuing her, so we get to see the moment when she's completely like won over, I guess,
mhm.
physically,
Yep.
because her character is the one who has like one foot in and one foot out, so she needs to be convinced, I suppose, or we need to
Yep.
be convinced that she has 2 feet in now.
Mhm.
I was just the that scene made me a little uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the fact that it
Mm,
was zoomed in so much, and it was
on her.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean let's say you flip the genders across the
Mhm.
board for the entire film. I still would have been uncomfortable with that.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
so that was
Interesting.
I thought it was strange. It
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, but
even though like she was clearly enjoying herself. and
Yep.
it was very intimately staged. It didn't feel to me like it was particularly romantic.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's more about like obsession, and it's not really obsession. It's more about like desire more than romance.
Yeah,
I I I think this film is a kind of like anti-romance in a way.
an anti-romance movie. Well,
Yep.
I suppose. I mean, yeah, that's actually a good point because all the other couples have their own problems as well.
Yep.
Julia is always complaining about how Corrado mistreats her and always is always telling her like not to talk about the weather and shit
Yeah.
because he can clearly see what the weather is just by looking up at the sky.
Yeah.
Um,
That's.
Also, Patrizia is cheating on her husband. We don't even meet the husband until much later in the movie.
I don't even. I can't even recall the husband of Patricia.
He's the one who's in the hotel room when
Oh yeah,
Claudia
yeah,
comes
yeah,
to the
yeah, yeah,
hotel
yeah.
room and is like, "Where is Sandro?" The husband's like, "Man, how the fuck am I supposed to know?"
Yep.
Uh,
Good response. Yep.
yeah. Then, but we do the first man that we see her with is what's the guy's name? It's like Ricardo Raimundo. And he like gives a little speech about how she Patrizia is like the the very definition of like a temptress, but also like a loyal follower, something like that. You know, something kind of like very grand sounding and romantic and poetic
Yep.
sounding, as befits an Italian movie. But
Yep.
she's obviously not on great terms with her husband. Anna and Sandro are obviously having problems. Claudia is reluctant to be together with Sandro because of her guilt about Anna.
Hmm.
Julia is, you know, on the outs with Corrado. Yeah, it is kind of an anti-romance movie. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. All right. I think it's time for us to get into the last scene then.
All right.
La Dolce Vita.
Yeah, by far my favorite of these films.
I agree. I agree with you on that.
Easily. I
Yep.
mean, I can kind of see. I don't know, you know, I don't know anything about movies, basically,
Hmm.
and but nonetheless, like I can see why Americans love Fellini. Having seen only
Hmm.
one of his films, because they are loud, they're energetic. You know,
All right.
they don't. There's no potential for people to be like, man, this film's too slow. Man, this film is
I,
boring, because
yep.
his movies are just like intense. You know,
Yep. 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 Yep.
the
Yep.
sound's always blaring. Um, you know,
Yep. I
feels
I
good to
understand what
watch.
you mean. But the thing is, Fellini make a name for himself for being a neo-realist. So, do what before transition to like more art house cinema with La Dolce Vita being like the first film that he like make a grander movies. So yeah, do ourselves a favor and watch his other stuff because I think it's good as well.
There was
I watched
actually a
one.
shout out specifically to the neorealist movement, like in the dialogue in this film. Did you catch
Oh
that?
really?
Yeah.
I can't recall that.
Do you
What
remember
was
the
that scene?
scene where Sylvia, the American actress,
Hmm.
um, is taking questions from the Italian press?
Right, right, right.
And one of the reporters asks, "Do you think the neorealist movement is dead or is it still alive?" And she doesn't even answer the question. Many of the other questions she answers in like a very teasing, very coy manner.
Yep,
Like, oh, I only go to bed with 2 drops of French perfume on. Like, I don't wear a nightgown or whatever.
yep, yep, yep.
But when somebody asks her about the neorealist movement, the film it doesn't even the film doesn't even give her a chance not to answer. It just cuts to the next question. And
Okay.
I mean, I have to imagine if that scene was directed that way, that's like Fellini specifically like saying to the audience, "Quit asking me about the neorealist movement. Like I'm doing other
That,
shit now."
yep, yep, yep,
I just thought that was very interesting, even though I don't know anything about neorealism.
yep.
I thought that was
We,
like a very cheeky move.
yep, yeah. We could do one of that in the future. The Italian neo religion.
Yeah, because then you get to watch Bicycle Thief, right? And a movie
And
that you
yeah,
gotta watch. You gotta watch Bicycle Thief.
you got to watch this, and you got to watch like his Fellini earlier stuff as well. So I think it's a good trade off. It's not
Yeah,
even a trade off. You know, like the bicycle tip is good.
right. I would hope so.
All right. Yeah, the story. I know one thing first I must say is I think the poster is kind of misleading. You know, the poster
Yes.
we see is it have that kind of like noir feeling,
Yeah, you got the Sig,
and
you got him in very cool tones, the blue,
yeah,
and then you have the bombshell woman in color.
yeah, and this is anything but noir film. It's not noir at all.
Yeah,
It
you don't even hear his. He doesn't even narrate the film. You don't hear his
Yep,
thoughts.
yep. And I think the show start with a really good prologue. They kind of split the film into like several nights, separate nights, and having the main characters Marcelo, in the center of all that. And the story itself, like each night is leading into much grander, bigger things. This film is really big.
Yes, it not only is it very long, it it's just huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
every single day that it depicts introduces a ton of new characters, a new
Yep,
setting, a new situation, a new thematic idea.
that's
Um,
right.
this
Great.
to in a sense, this film kind of reminded me of Perrault Le Fou, just
Right.
because it feels like the
Huh.
director put so many of his interests into the work.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
for like
Okay.
any really technical or formal reasons, but just because this just really seems like a Fellini movie in the same
Right.
way that something like Perrault Le Fou feels like a Godard film, like before anything else.
Yeah. Well, and even like the prologue, we see like a helicopter transferring the Jesus statue.
Right.
I mean, like like it's really big when you think about that. Like have the budget to to have just that.
Right. But
Man,
also just the concept of that scene is
that's true.
it's a helicopter which is a very modern invention, especially for
Yep.
1960. So it's like the helicopter would be one of man's. Um, I don't know when the helicopter was built exactly, when it was
I
invented.
think I think in the early 90s, I would say so.
In the early what 1890s, or you mean the early
Sorry,
20th century,
20,
1900s?
1900s.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
So it just seems like to be kind of a contrast between modernity and technology in the helicopter and
Hmm.
tradition and religion and spirituality in the statue
Yep.
of Jesus. So there's a contrast right off the bat. Like there's going to be tension between those two ideas. And then
Yep.
here comes Marcello in the second helicopter, who is tasked with covering the story, I suppose, as a
Hmm.
reporter. That's why he's following the first helicopter and he's going to watch the statue like be installed. But instead of doing that, instead of either doing his job or treating it with the the reverence that the situation calls for,
Yep.
instead he tries to get phone numbers. He tries to get a phone number from one of the female sunbathers watching the statue of Jesus go by. So right
Yep.
away, the first time we meet this guy, he's flaking on his job and he's disrespecting Christ.
Yeah. Well, we didn't even know his job before then, but like what you said in the La Ventura, like the male gaze is really on here. Like we have like the shot of the woman in bikinis, and like asking what is that? What the hell is going on, and all this.
Well, it is, but I mean, I want to make a distinction between La Dolce Vita and La Aventura as far as
Yep.
their treatment of female characters goes. Like, obviously, La Dolce Vita it
Oh,
has the
okay.
highest density of hot chicks to per scene out of any of these three films by far.
Yep.
I mean, I have to assume Fellini was like super horny while he was making this movie, and probably many of his movies justified to take a shot in the dark. but
Ah,
still,
ah.
like even so, it like it isn't built into the it isn't one of the film's major like points of observation in the same way that it is in La Aventura when it's like stop everything, an entire city block is well, that's not true because we
Yep.
get the scene of Sylvia getting off the plane
Yep.
and all the reporters, 100% of the reporters are men, and they're all like desperate to get like a perfect image of her. And then there's
Yep.
one of the funniest parts of the entire film is as all that's going on and all that chaos is happening, they're all trying to get the perfect shot. They send her back into the airplane and tell her to come out again so she can do another like reveal.
Yep. 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 Yep.
One of
Yep.
the
Yep.
guys who works at the airport, like one part of the ground crew, is
Yep.
driving by in a little vehicle, and he's like, don't let me catch a glimpse of this woman or I will kill my wife. God bless Sweden.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean,
I
yes, the obviously there's a lot of hot girls in the movie, and Fellini, I'm sure, was highly involved in the casting of all those actresses, and their
Yep.
beauty is like the point of many of those scenes. But it's not exactly the same as in the other
Mhm.
movie where it's like orchestrating scenes of a whole bunch of guys crowding around a woman and like almost trapping her on the street.
Ha ha
Like
ha ha ha.
like the
We
scene
do
of
have that
Claudia
here.
specifically.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
no equivalent to a scene like that in this movie.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Uh, I must say that because I watched La Dolce Vita before, but like really long time ago, must be like 10 years now. So I don't remember the details. But one thing that I'm really glad La Dolce Vita had this time is it's funnier than I thought. It's much funnier than I thought.
Yeah, it really
It
is.
it had like the tone of satire in there, like it had a look at the industry, especially the paparazzis,
Hmm.
and all they see that um it HR virgin. So it's like they overplay it. But I really like the shot, even to the one where they have like the fake Madonna gaze. I don't know what they call it that. Uh,
Yeah,
the
I wasn't sure about that scene, really.
All right, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I wasn't sure what to make of it exactly. So there's two kids
yep,
who have apparently seen the Madonna, and the Madonna
uh-huh,
meaning Mary,
right,
the mother of Jesus.
yep, yeah, yep,
Who is a like a deified figure in the Catholic religion.
hmm hmm
That I didn't really. I mean, this film's definitely fixated on the media, and the media is like the way that they shape events and their desperation to like get the perfect picture, and
yep,
um, like when they're posing the older men and women in the church, like the woman who really wants to get her children back, and they make her point
yeah,
so
yeah,
they
yeah,
can
yeah,
get
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
perfect shot of her and all that. And the one guy who's like, "Give me a cigar." They're like, "After we
yeah,
take your picture, old man."
yeah, 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 yeah,
Um, the film's really interested in depicting like the paparazzi and the media
yep, yep,
and like they're basically hyenas, like they're sharks. Um, so I understood that about that whole scene,
yep.
but just the I don't know, maybe the layout of it, the way that the scene establishes itself, and the the lack of detail or the lack of clarity surrounding it. Like, how are the police involved exactly?
All right, all right.
And what?
Is that are you talking solely at the at that episode where they see where the two kids see
The
the
Madonna?
Virgin Mary, the
Yeah.
Madonna?
I mean, I
All right.
remember the police like locking arms and stopping the crowd from like storming the place and
Yep.
I don't know,
Yep.
killing
Yep.
the kids or like trampling them or
I,
something.
I just think they are meant to be there to control. So it because when they see when the two kids come, it's gonna be it's get chaos. Uh, and we see that later on when the kids trying to point out where the Madonna is, and like all the people, like like old and young, doesn't matter their profession, just follow what the two kids like pointing out, the media as well, and it was raining at the time, so it's like it exactly the chaos.
Yeah. Well, I did like that scene specifically for its I don't know, its photography of crowds,
Yep.
like
It's
the pandemonium of the people overtaking the line of cops and like trying to take a branch off the tree,
yeah, 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 yeah.
the tree where apparently the two kids saw the Virgin Mary.
Yep, yep,
Like
yep,
maybe
yep.
they saw her sitting underneath it or something. And there's a whole bunch of people who are trying to take some like a branch or some leaves or something.
Hmm, hmm.
It seemed, and this is why earlier I was talking about this feeling like a very film that's specific to its director and is like a combination of interests and influences.
Yep.
Is that scene doesn't seem really to be of a piece with many of the others. Many of the others are
Right.
criticisms of like the bourgeoisie, the aristocracy, like the decadence of partygoers and bohemians and things of that
Hmm,
nature. This
hmm.
film, I mean, this scene, this episode, seems like I don't know. Is it a criticism of religious hysteria or of religion itself or of Catholicism itself or what's the deal?
All right, all right, all right. I think I can still see how relevant that episode is to like the rest of the episodes. It's still like about the surface, like it more about like pure people still satire, which is like the same in tone, about like people who care about like who blinded by the belief that like willing to listen to the two kids, like anyway,
Right.
and how crazy it would get when they get like to extreme, like they try to get off the branches because like that was that's the where they signed the Madonna. So it's still a criticism at the society at large, where like they blindly like in devotion for religion without like any substantial like judgment of what is real or not. So it's still like his criticism for the Italian life. That's what I mean. Society
Yeah, but I don't agree. Like
of what of.
the people who are obsessed with
Mhm,
like devout Catholics who are obsessed with the idea that Mary is underneath this tree and they need to get the branches and they need to like talk to the kids or touch the kids or be healed of their disease. Like a woman brings along a I don't know, her father or some male acquaintance who ends up dead after the chaos.
yep.
Like there's the funeral scene. Marcello shows up there. Those people are not part. They're not even. They're hardly even part of the same society as the film's other targets.
Hmm,
They're
hmm.
members of like the proletariat. They're part of the working class.
Yep.
Most of the other people that the film mocks are rich
Yep.
and
Yep.
not religious. I would assume like they live. Either they're
Yep.
atheists or they live. What's the word I'm looking for?
In the closed society where.
No, just a word meaning like secular. They live secularly. Um,
All right.
they're not the same. You know.
Yep. 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 I think I understand what you mean, but I think this is like added fun to the whole film as well. I do see what you mean. Yes.
It does have the same satirical tone. I mean, that much is definitely evident in, especially the the scenes where the photographers are posing the some of the older characters within the church, or
Right.
like
Yep.
the
Yep.
building. The I assume that that's a church building or some kind of school, or I don't know what it is actually, but
Mhm.
when they're staging photographs, obviously there's a satirical bent to those scenes, but and the concept of like religion as something that provokes hysteria, and spirituality being corrupted and becoming something destructive is being skewered. But that doesn't feel like the
Mhm.
same skewering that's happening in other scenes where it's a bunch of people like knocked off their ass on opium or just drunk or high or
Mhm.
whatever, at parties where they're just behaving decadently and foolishly.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
Um.
the fact that the film is, segmented, kind of episodically, it does follow Marcello, and it is told linearly. So there's a
Mhm.
story that you can follow, but it is still separated into its own individual stories and chapters. So it can afford to um, tell a story that's kind of isolated from all the others. It doesn't,
Yep.
derail. It doesn't derail the film or anything like that.
Mhm. Do you like us to talk about each episode individually, or just go through like what on our mind?
I don't know. I mean, we've already been jumping around, but
Yep.
we can try to go through one at a time. I mean, we already talked about the prologue, which is. Do you have Wikipedia up? Because I do. We
Right.
already
Yes.
talked about the prologue, which is the statue of Jesus in the helicopter, and then
Yep.
we haven't talked about Maddalena, which is
Yep.
she's
Yep.
the central female character in the first
Yep.
episode, such as they're called.
Yeah, I think he's like Marcelo main muse. So yeah, I think she the kind of technique that that the female cell trying to mock her and Marcelo as well. Madalena being like the person, the very rich daughter of of a powerful father, in which I don't think we know what her father position is.
No, we
But
don't.
yeah, but she's just super rich, and she's just super boy as well
Yeah,
of the
but
lives.
I I think it's fair to say that the film is, criticizing her and her quote unquote class of people to some extent, but you have to remember that she also has that bruise on her cheek underneath her eye, which she covers up with
Right.
glasses. So the
Yeah.
she's a victim as well.
Hmm. 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 Yep.
Of what
Yep.
and of whom I don't think we ever really learn, or we don't
Yep.
know.
Yep.
But it's not as though she's like a completely ridiculous or
Yep.
comedic
Yep. Yep.
figure.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And I would say that Marcelo is like his behavior even like unlikable than like what we could say about Madalena. But
Even at that early point in the film.
yeah, yeah. Even that, like you remember like the first thing in that episode, we see him in the restaurant, and someone call him out and tell him uh not to tell or not to follow the one of these powerful wife because it might upset her or something.
Yeah, like
And
don't run a story exposing the fact that such and
yeah,
such a woman was. Oh, that's true. That is one of the first thing we learn. That is
yeah,
one of the first thing we learns about him. Not only that he might do it in the future, but that he has in the past
yeah,
run a story that specifically harmed
yeah.
one of the attendees of this nightclub because it got her in trouble with her husband.
Yeah, that's right. And then the look on his face is just like, I don't care. It's my job. And
Yeah, he is pretty. I don't know. Like I feel like early on in the film, his smugness still comes across as like self assurance. And
mhm,
eventually, the
mhm,
more that we follow him, the more that we learn about him, the more that we learn that he's not self assured. Especially once we
yeah.
get to the episode with his father.
Oh,
Um,
I would say like especially when it get to the episode, the several small episode with his best friend Stenders, where I can see his more like vulnerable side, but the one with the father also kind of hint that as well. Yes.
I think the chapter with the father is the one that I mean, when you get that POV shot of what's I can't even remember her name, man. The
Uh.
dancer at the nightclub where he
Oh
takes
yeah,
his
yeah, yep.
father.
All right.
What was
Uh.
her name?
All right. Let me
Fanny,
think.
right? Fanny. That's how he
Yeah, maybe
introduces
her.
her to his dad. It's a strange name, but whatever.
Yep.
Where we get after his dad like insists that he leave and take a taxi and get back home. When obviously Marcello wants to spend more time with him, we get a
Mm.
POV shot of Fanny. We don't see Fanny, but through her eyes, we look through the window and we see him seeing off his dad, and like he reaches into the taxi to like make physical contact with his father as the car is pulling away. And once it goes around the
Right.
corner, Marcello is just
Yep.
standing in the middle of the street and he looks just like a little boy. He
Yep.
looks like
Yep.
completely lost.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I think that's where you figure out that
And
he's not even a man. He didn't have a model of manhood for himself growing up
yeah.
because his dad was always absent,
Yeah.
and
I
now
I
he's turned out this way, like he's a shell, basically.
yeah. I love the scene where he recall, like his relationship with his fathers when he was young. Just because the fact that like when we looking at first it's just like a normal like father's son reunion, which like the son never have a time to go to visit the parents
Right.
his parents. But as he talked more about that, we see the way like their previous relationship was, and like what make him himself now.
Yeah.
He kind of just like his father. I think at one point Fanny did say that as well.
Yeah. Well, I think she says to the dad while they're dancing,
Yeah, yeah,
"Oh
that's
no,
right.
I'm afraid that you're just like your son."
The son.
And
Yeah,
he says something like, "Oh, we're of the same breed," or I don't know,
yep, yep,
something
yep,
along
yep,
those lines. And she laughs,
yep,
but that's just part of her job, of course, is to laugh at men's jokes.
yep.
Um,
And yeah, and I think it interesting as well in the perspective that Marcelo, like also a bit kind of like thinking of the mother as well. So that's why he had concern for the dad. So that's why he tried to call. I think he does try to call off a few times before the dad come into Fanny house
he tries to do what?
to call off to like let's stop the party here. Yeah, yeah, you can go home with me. Are you sure that you want to go to Fanny house? Like
Oh,
something
right.
along the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a bit of like the concerns, but
Well, I
I
think
would.
that concern is probably a desire to like be with his be with his dad.
Yeah,
He's concerned because
really?
he's like drinking too much and everything, but he also just wants, he would rather have his dad stay at his place because I don't know,
I
maybe he's thinking like in the back of his head, "Oh, this is my chance. Like I never saw him when I was a kid. Now we're going to fix that. We're going to like slap a band-aid on
I
this
think
terrible wound that have that stems from my childhood."
I think it's more of a concern that he concerned that that would go like so far like falling into the victim of the knives so to speak, just like him. So
Interesting.
yeah,
I didn't
that's
get
what I think
that
as well.
I didn't get
And
that sense from that scene, but I like that reading of it.
I think the lack of like his concern towards the mothers, his own mother, when like the father just having fun, saying a lot about like the male gaze as well.
Oh, well, yeah, the fact that the dad is making comments about everybody's legs and stuff.
Yeah, and even like making a pass at Fanny as well. Like going to her house for a tea.
Yeah. Well, I mean it's clearly the dad's aim is to like sleep with this woman,
Mhm.
but it's a little vague what issue he has that, prevents that from happening, I guess. Like
Oh,
if it's medical in nature or if it's more mental or
I think
what.
it's kind of both, and I think like they just make perfect sense. Like living the way it is. Like don't really tell us why he having a second thought. I think it's just maybe his sense of like husband, or maybe it's just his condition. But whatever the case, he's come to his sense
Right.
and he come back home.
Yeah, that was an
Love
interesting
that.
one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
We
Uh,
we got off track again. We were talking about the
that
fact that
that's
Marcello
alright.
and Maddalena
Madalena.
go to a prostitute's house in order to make love.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think because Madalena is just so bored that she, like trying to, like have some fun herself by basically improvise. So because I think she bored of the restaurant, so that's why she go along with Marcelo, to go somewhere, and then like just pick up the a hooker at random, giving her a ride home just because like Mandela was small.
Yeah, I think the reason that it's written that way might also be she wants to like experience um, like maybe a more common setting or a more common perspective
Yep, 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 yep.
when she sleeps with a man. Like she doesn't want, maybe she's tired of, I don't know, doing it in really fancy hotels or in her own mansion or whatever, wherever she lives.
Yep.
Um, she just, it could be that she's interested in having a different experience in that
Hmm.
way, but it could also be viewed as like a violation of the, like she's kind of imposing her will on this sex worker. Like, we're your space is our space now. This is my, we're going to use
Mm,
this house for whatever we want, for whatever I want, and you're not involved in this. You're not part of the equation here. So you
mm,
could see it as curiosity from like from a richer person towards the lifestyle of the poor, or you could see it as a violation,
mm.
the rich person violating the space and the rights of the poor.
Oh, I didn't take that scene that way, but that's an interesting
Or
take.
you could I mean I think it comes across that she's like disaffected, bored, and curious. That's
Yep,
what
yep,
her performance will tells you. But
yep.
at the same time, like if you're viewing this film perhaps a little bit more politically, you
Mhm.
might see it as like her overstepping her bounds.
Yep. But I think the sequence that more important for me is later on where Marcelo come home to find out that Emma, I think, commit suicide,
No,
uh,
she overdoses. Yeah,
overdose.
it's
Yep,
possible that she tried to commit suicide.
yep, yep.
And I don't know like if there were sleeping pills or what. It's possible that she just took too many and didn't mean to kill herself. But he does say to her like "you fool"
I,
while
yeah,
he's
I,
addressing her while she's unconscious. So that could be "you fool" as in like why would you make such a foolish decision to end your life?
yeah, or maybe she just kind of depressed, so that's why she overdosed because
Right.
she just drink too, she just have too much pills. But whatever the case, I think that's a very good first impression that we have for to Marcelo and Emma relationship. Like they into more
They're what?
basically. They just like they not in a good shape.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, and yeah, we kind of see that again later on. But I think the interesting fact is that Marcelo uh get her to the hospital, and I think like a lot of ways just say like don't you die, or like I will be with you. And then when she was in the intensive care, he just tried to call Madalena.
Right. Yeah,
That's very interesting of him.
that's definitely a black spot on his record at that early point in the film.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that his wife is, I mean he does it after he receives word from the doctor that she's recovered.
Yep,
And
that's
it's,
yep,
I
yep.
think if I remember correctly, I think it's clear that she is like conscious or semi-conscious as he's holding her head while she's on the in the bed, or I guess it's a table that she's on, maybe like an operating table or something in that
Mhm.
little room. Um,
Yep, yep, yep.
it he sees that she's alive and conscious and is going to make it. And so all of a sudden his guilt, his, well, first of all his fear about like that she might pass away, but also his guilt probably about the fact that he, through his mistreatment and his negligence of her, he drove her to do this, at least in part.
Yep. Yep.
As soon as he sees that she's going to live, his guilt, it was
God.
spiked and it was at an all-time high. Yeah, and then instantly, bam. Oh, I'm good. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let me go call up my side chick real quick.
Yep. 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 I think
Um,
so as well.
yeah, so that's
Okay.
not a good look.
Well, but that interesting. I think the first episode was really successful on like establishing Marcelo's his profession, his personalities, and his uh he's not on good term with his fiancés.
Right.
And getting to the second episode is where if you think the fake miracle for you is the one that devotes for the rest of the films, it's for me it's the in this second episodes because of the American actress, and they have like a fling at like in the span of a night, I think. And yeah, and this one is the one where like Sylvia, she's speaking English as well. So I think this is like the only time where they speak uh, language other than Italian in these films.
Now, there's English speaking at several of the parties that he attends.
All right, yeah, it's just like in occasions, but this one is like more prominence. And yeah, and Sylvia, he yeah, this episode he's more of like the he's not the main characters. That's what I feel. It's more like he was uh patched along
Yeah,
with
he's
the
kind of
ride.
drawn into Sylvia's orbit
Yep,
because
yep,
she
yep,
is
yep.
like such a magnetic figure. And it does, I will say, it does feel like this is the biggest of the
Yep.
film's various sections,
Mm-hmm.
episodes. This is the biggest one. This is the one that could most easily it could most easily evolve and become its own film. And
Mm-hmm.
that's probably why it has so, like, why the poster features Sylvia. Not only because she's like so beautiful, but because it's kind of the highlight of the movie. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's not exactly, you can't say that it's really the pinnacle or the climax or anything because it is a bit divorced from the rest of the movie. But I've I don't feel as though it's quite set apart in the same way as
Mm-hmm.
the two kids who see the
Yep,
Madonna,
yep,
and that's
yep.
because the this part of the film, like this second episode with Sylvia, is necessary. It's like the film rests on it because
Mm-hmm.
Sylvia is the the female character who Marcello can't have.
Yep.
She's like too um, she's too self-possessed basically.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
like loves life, and whenever she hears like dogs, she howls together with them. She finds a cat on the street and she picks it up and like temporarily adopts it, takes care of it.
And
She sees a
that's right.
fountain, she walks into it. She hears music, she dances to
Yep,
it like unceasingly.
yep, yep.
So
That's true.
she's just living in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, there's the artifice of her celebrity, and the fact that the film like is obviously satirizing that and mocking it. How ridiculous it is that people are like falling all over themselves just to get a picture of her, and that
Mm-hmm.
anyone would receive that sort of status at all, like under any circumstances. That's all
Mm-hmm.
kind of you know poked at by the
Mm-hmm.
film's treatment of these scenes. But as for the character of Sylvia herself, she is like totally genuine and enthusiastic, and
Yep,
Marcello can't handle that
yep, yep. That's
because
true.
he's a phony. So
Yep.
I think it's necessary for the film for Sylvia to exist, within this film as kind of the counterpoint
Mm-hmm.
to much of its other, many of its other
Yep,
scenes, many of its other episodes.
yep. I could say that Sylvia is a star that took pride for Marcelos and even the city nighttime.
Hmm. That's a very Italian way, very poetic way of putting it.
And yeah, it's lit to the fountain scene, and I think the fountain scene is really really beautiful. You know, like the way that we have like all these fountain, the waterfall, and then when they about to kiss, it just like get brightened, and like, everything just like back to reality.
Right. It's like they were the being in the fountain. A spell was cast. Basically, they were
Yeah, yeah,
transported to
yeah.
another place,
Yes.
and then
Uh,
that illusion or that moment is broken. Um,
yes. The plot event that doesn't work very well to me though is Sylvia boyfriend. I think it's another actor, and
yeah,
I don't think.
I didn't even get
Yeah,
that he was her boyfriend or fiance or whatever until I went on Wikipedia later. I assumed that he was like going to be her co-star in a film that they were going to
yeah, but
shoot in Italy.
yeah, they did say that, but we can see the tension when Sylvia like first time she met her, she said like you supposed to pick me up, and the guy was just like, yeah, I was wrong.
Hmm. Okay, I
Remember that? I think
no,
it's
not
on the
really.
interview. Yeah.
I yeah, I mean, I know he was late to the interview. I mostly
Yeah.
remember him at the party, like drawing pictures of people,
Hmm,
like
hmm,
in order
hmm.
to mock them, I suppose, like drawing them caricatured
Yep.
versions of them. And then, of
Yep.
course, the scene at the end where he slaps
Slap.
her, sends her into their hotel,
Yep.
and then beats up. He gives Marcello the old 1-2.
Yep. Well, yeah, I think this is the only one plot that I doesn't really care, and I don't
What,
think it's get.
bro?
No, 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 no. The boyfriend, not Sylvia.
Oh,
The
okay.
boyfriend.
I was like, "What are you talking about?" the
you
dance,
know,
the dancing scene um,
I
was amazing.
yeah, I have my least favorite episode out of the seventh one, but we will talk about that later.
I mean, we're already almost an hour and 50 minutes deep into this.
Right.
Why don't we
Oh,
just talk about like our
wrap it up.
favorites and our least favorites, and then the ending of the film? Yeah, I mean, you really do
That
need like an hour and a half just to discuss this film
yeah.
alone, because it's a
I
bunch of
think
other
that
smaller films.
yeah, that's right. But it worked perfectly fine with me as well because my favorite film is actually the one the ones where he with Stanner, his friends, and we see. I think this is the section where we can see Marcelo conflict the most, and we can see like the emotion and the underlying emotion the most.
I'm not sure
Uh,
which episode you're talking about.
the whole thing. So he met Stender at first at the church, and then going on to the party
Oh,
where
Steiner.
like
Okay, now I'm with you.
Stender, yeah,
Gotcha.
where Stender had like such a perfect party that he really wanted to like be a part of that, but Stender just told him that he isn't happy with his current life. For him, peace is he said something about peace
Yeah,
that
he said that he feels peace is a facade and it's going to be ripped away, and hell is going to be what's like
yeah,
beneath it.
break loose. But that just like that's just a hint that we see in standard cracks, because later on we know that he killed the two children, and he committed suicide just
Right.
to get out of his health. So yeah, I think that really give the emotional impact of the audience, and Marcelo, like Marcelo being the guy who like doesn't really feel remorse about anything, but I think standard that really affected him.
Well, you can definitely tell that it affects him just based on the chronology of the film, because the
Mhm.
episode that follows that one is where he's completely given up on his literary aspirations, no longer a
Yep.
journalist. Now he's an agent for famous people, and
Yep.
he's participating in this ridiculous party where he actually attempts to like he's like, okay, you start having sex with that person, and then that
Yep.
person's gonna start having sex with this person, and then he
uh,
takes one of the attendees of the party by the hair and like slaps her across the cheek several times,
yep, yep, yep,
rides her around by sitting on her back and covers her with feathers that he's pulled from a pillow.
yep,
Like
yep.
it's
That
completely he's he's gone past the point of no return at this point, I guess. And the fact that it
yeah,
comes
that's true.
immediately after the murder suicide, the double
Yep,
murder suicide within Steiner's
yep,
family,
yep,
that
yep,
is
yep.
that's not a coincidence.
That is true, and this episode is among my least favorite out of the out of the whole films.
Yeah, I didn't
I,
really like it either. The party
I think it's
scene.
about to be disgusting. You know,
It is supposed to be
we
disgusting and over the top and all that, but I really feel like Fellini kind of put his foot on his film's neck. Like
right,
he
right.
just kind of choked that scene out,
Yep, yep.
instead of letting it
I agree with you
breathe.
on that. I agree with you on that. Uh, I was a bit confused as well because the woman who like undressed, who tried to undress in that scene look exactly like Emma. But so I was thinking at first that like this is the very first time that so we go back in time and this was the very first time that he and Emma first met. But turned out it's not. It's something like sometime in the later in the future where he like completely give up his writing career like you said.
Yeah.
So
The it's not Emma. I mean, at that point, he and Emma are completely split because there's that whole screaming match that they have in the car
yeah,
in that one that one scene.
yep, yep, yep.
He does come back to
Uh,
pick her up.
yeah,
Actually,
he
no,
does come
I'm
back to pick
completely
up.
wrong. They're not split up after that because he picks her up and then they're shown in bed together
Yeah,
the next morning.
yeah, but the thing is, it doesn't matter if like they still together or not because his behaviors still like become more aggressive. I mean, like his nighttime party and like his the way that he attached to like this lifestyle getting worse.
Right.
So yeah, we get to the to that silver scene at the end, and like for me, it's the only time where I just feel it run longer than it need be.
I'm not sure that it was longer than it needed to be. I think maybe it could have been written a little bit differently. Length may
Right.
not have been the issue.
Mhm.
Just the fact that like there he's supposed to be broken at that point.
Yep.
Like the face that he's tried to put on for all the different women because it's mostly women that he's like in pursuit of throughout the film and that he's posturing for
Yep.
in all the different scenes. But that he's not able to do that anymore by the end of the movie. So in that scene, he's broken as a result of, plenty of his own choices, but also the what happens to Steiner and what Steiner does.
Yep.
It just maybe the film could have used a little bit of restructuring, or you put a particular chapter between his what him learning of Steiner's death and
The
that final
downfall.
scene. I
Yep.
don't know. It didn't exactly sit right with me. But
Yep.
perhaps maybe that's the point. Maybe
Yep.
the
Maybe.
point is that I mean, even looking at it kind of metatextually, thinking about the film as a movie, maybe the cool the handsome movie star who gets all the ladies. Uh, maybe the idea, Fellini's idea, is that of course, like men who are watching the film, especially, are going to have some sympathy for this guy, or at least some attachment to his character. And maybe Fellini wanted it to be really uncomfortable and wanted to destroy that concept or that image with that
Yep.
final scene.
Yep. Oh, it's not the final scene though because we do have the epilogue,
Right.
and
So that can be the last thing that we talk about, I guess, so we don't run too
yeah,
long.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
do you think
yeah,
about that?
yeah. I really like it. I actually I have no idea what it tried to say, but I really like the fact that they go into the beach. They see uh the uh the big
Yeah,
the
what is it exactly? It looks like a gigantic manta ray to me. Like it has kind of,
yeah
I don't know, wings, really not the right word, just really long fins. Like it's Like that's how its
I
body is structured, kind of like a stingray or manta ray.
Yeah, well, we could go with that because I just feel yeah, it's just the huge sea creators
Yeah, just a big sea
and
creature.
yeah, and the thing is he see Paula, the girl that he met early on in the in one of the pub, or is that the pub,
It was a
yeah,
restaurant. She was a
the
waitress.
restaurant, the waitress, yeah. And the thing is he tried to tell him something, and he did he couldn't really make out what it means. I think it's a bit go back to the prologue where like the girls tried to have his number and he couldn't hear them either.
Oh, wow.
So,
Good point.
so yeah, so it might be a just a way of saying that he like he completely lost in like trying to connect with other people.
Well, women specifically.
Woman, yep, yep,
You
yep,
you can extrapolate it and be like he can't really communicate with anybody. And I mean, you can easily say that because he doesn't understand Steiner. He doesn't really see the demon that's lurking underneath in that guy's life. He doesn't understand his father,
yep,
and he hasn't been able to his entire life. So it's not only women, but I do think that this film and I mean all three of these films are about
yep,
relationships between men and women.
yep, yep,
Um,
yep. That's true.
but this one like especially so, I feel.
I just love the epilogue, the final scenes. It just like end up with a note where like it's suggested more to come, but it's feel satisfying, like closing it at the same time.
I really didn't feel as though it suggested anything beyond what was put on
Like move
screen.
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
well, like he's led away from the bank of the beach where he's like attempting to communicate with Paula, but another, he's like, forget it, I can't do it, I can't hear what she's saying. He turns and leaves with another woman and goes back to, ostensibly that house where they were having that party, and he's going to continue his self destructive lifestyle. Um,
Yep.
and Paula, of course, and this is something that I don't really like about the epilogue is that Paula is just made to represent like his future almost, like a
His
future where he
future.
could be set on the right path, where he might be redeemed, where he might be able to like have a healthy relationship with a woman.
Yeah, but he end up walking in the other path, right?
Right. But the thing that I mean, is the film is just making its youngest female character out to be like the the alternate path that he could have taken.
Right.
So in the end, it even that scene boils down to like he goes back to his terrible shitty life, and he's because he's past the point of no return. He's stuck in his own echo chamber, I guess, or his own spiral, like negative spiral. But
Yep.
the way that the film personifies his potential escape route, his the potential for him to be set back on the right path, is with another woman.
Yep. 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 I
You
think I
know,
understand
and
what you
I
mean.
mean,
Yes.
it's. I mean, the reason that I'm making all these comparisons and that I usually don't bring up stuff like the female gaze. I think that that's a ridiculously overused, and it receives like too much focus and concentration from people who critique film. But and so the reason I brought it up when talking about La Aventura, and the reason that I'm bringing up this issue that I have with the epilogue in La Dolce Vita is because all of these movies are really about like men and women. That's what's
Hmm.
that's the
Yep.
focus.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and so that's the way that I'm interpreting the films as well. Like I can't help it because that's the thesis of all these movies
Hmm.
is can men and women like can they
Yep.
coexist? Can they understand one another? Will they drive each other to ruin? Can they be reconciled to each other after they've hurt one another? Uh, so
Yep.
there you go. I
Yep.
mean, I I I like the idea of the epilogue on the whole. Like I don't have any real problems with it.
Hmm.
Like nothing that would take away from my enjoyment of the film overall. Though I do think that the party scene is kind of whack.
Hmm.
But it just occurred to me, that
Yep.
the young innocent character is meant to represent the alternate path for the male lead.
Yep. And he ended up not taking it, so
Right. But he does get led back to, like, away from her and back towards the house by another woman. He's holding hands with
yep.
another female
Yep.
character, one of the party goers.
Huh. What an ending.
It's
Yep.
I do wonder what the sea creature is supposed to represent. Like,
I have no idea,
yeah,
and
me
I
neither.
it just it feel big though. It feel like it belong well to the rest of the film of being like extravagant, everything that like larger than life. Yeah, I don't know what it represent. Maybe it represent nothing.
Maybe. Maybe it
And
was like a leftover prop from a different movie. And Fellini was like,
ye-
"We are really over budget. We got anything like hanging out in a prop warehouse or something we can just pull out here?"
yeah, let's go with this. One last thing I want to mention is I think I read in a review from Roger Ebert about this film and how his perspective for La Dolce Vita changed over time, over decade. And he said like the more like 10 years after his last watch, he feel even more to relate to Marcelo the characters, and I think that's why he put La Dolce Vita as like one of his most favorite films.
Huh. So
Yep.
you're saying, like, his relationship to the character, his opinion of the character Marcello changed
Have
over
changed
time.
over time. Yep. Yep. That's right.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody. That's the case for every character and every person who's ever watched a movie, right?
Yep.
Like, if
Hmm.
once you've become a bit of a different person by going through, a new phase of your life, you will feel
Yep.
differently about a movie. I mean, unless it's a Marvel movie or something, because I mean,
Yep.
how are you going to feel about a Marvel movie the same way every time, right?
Well. Yep. Right. But yeah, I think that's just an interesting take. And for me, La Dolce Vita also like just ahead above other films. I do like a bit of pack of the adventure as well. But I would simply say that La Dolce Vita is one of my top 30, 25
So
films.
one of your favorite movies ever.
Yep, yep, yep,
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Um, it's good
yep,
because of its
yep,
structure. I don't like every single moment of it as much as all the rest. But
yep.
even
Hmm.
even movies that are, like, written and assembled more traditionally you know have that same issue, I suppose,
Yep.
or are you feel the same way about them. You don't like every scene as much as every other scene. So
Hmm.
a movie that segments itself a little bit differently, it's same thing.
Yep,
Not
that's
not an
right.
issue for the film. In fact, I think it plays as a strength for the majority of it.
Hmm. All right, so that's make the end of our Italian week, and we just spent an hour talking about La Dolce Vita, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it really is a kind of a mammoth film.
Yep,
It's
yep,
big.
yep,
It's too big to be contained in just a little slice of a single podcast episode. But we tried, and I think
yeah,
we
that's
both
right.
we both enjoyed the movie, and maybe
Yep,
parts of the other movies too.
yep,
I think
that's
this is
right.
this is going to be our last podcast for the year 2022. Is that right? At least on this
That
channel.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I guess
So
we got a lot of time to figure out what we're going to be talking about next.
that's exactly it. So see you. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, and see you in the New Year with more content to come.